Hello, welcome. We're going to be talking about our buddy Chad Daybell today and what happened on the stand yesterday, as well as things that happened over the weekend. So, one thing that was interesting was I feel like Chad Daybell had the most animated reaction that I've seen thus far in the trial. The question is, why? We're going to dissect that. Secondly, we're going to talk about JJ and Tylee's memorial service that was held on Saturday in Idaho. I attended and I have some insights from going there. And the third thing that I want to talk about today is the possibility of a mistrial, or if not mistrial, is there appellate, are there issues that could make a decision on this case reversible? I'll explain that in just a minute. First of all, let's talk about the possibility of a mistrial. Why would there even be suggestion that there could be a mistrial? I was talking to my brother over the weekend, and he's an attorney in Idaho, and he told me that there could possibly be grounds for a mistrial because of what happened in court on Friday. And he had a case that was not too dissimilar that became a mistrial. So I'm just going to say, let me explain why. Let me explain the theory behind why there'd be a mistrial, who would want a mistrial, and so on. There was a real estate agent who was on the stand Friday testifying about Chad's property and how he had wanted the property to be subdivided so that he could put a modular or trailer home on it, apparently for him and Lori to live in. At the time that this agent was working for Chad, Lori was in jail because she didn't produce her children. The children had not been found yet. And there's been some speculation that the reason why Chad wanted to put a prefab or trailer on the property was to draw attention away from the burial sites. That's the suggestion. Here's where the trouble comes. While John Pryor was doing his cross, the real estate agent said something back to Pryor that he should never have said. And that is, he said, well, I don't know. Why don't you tell me it's your property? Now you might think, what does that matter? That's not a big deal. That's not grounds for mistrial, but it possibly could be. And here's the reason. If the jury is tainted by him saying that, and then they think, oh, well, the attorney, anyway, it can get really gray in there. So there's the possibility. And all weekend, I was worrying about it because I didn't want to bring it up to the family and friends of JJ and Tylee at the memorial service because I didn't want them to have to worry about it over the weekend. But in the back of my mind, I was worrying about it. And actually, it could possibly come up as appellate, in the future if this trial, let's say there's a guilty verdict. Is that a reason for appellate issues? I don't know. I hope not. I hope it's just such a little slight that I'm not even sure that the jurors caught it. It was a little bit of a long day, long testimony, and I'm not sure that they even heard what was said until there was a sidebar and then they said strike what was the previous, and I'm sure they're. I personally, while I was watching it, was like, wait, what did he say? And I had to rewind it to figure out what it is that was being stricken. So hopefully, you know, there's enough argument to say the jurors didn't even really hear what was said. They didn't understand the ramifications behind it, and everything's okay. So let's just hope that's the case. I mean, let's face it, no one wants a mistrial at this point, not even John Pryor. Why, you might ask? Well, because John Pryor is not getting paid. He's already maxed out all the money that Chad had for all these years of service. And so he has to continue on with this case without getting paid. The last thing he wants to do is start over. And I'm sure all the attorneys, the judge, everyone feels the same. Probably the only person who might be like, I don't care, let's have a mistrial, would be Chad. I don't know. But I was just holding my breath Monday morning to see what transpired over the weekend. Was there going to be, you know, discussion about a mistrial, and luckily there wasn't. So, whew, what a relief. Monday morning came and the trial got going again, and we're going to talk about that. But luckily, so far, no mistrial. But that is something to be, you know, let's just face it, witnesses should not be trying to get the attorneys, you know? We've seen too many movies, too many TV shows. That's not how it works. Now, I'm going to be talking about the memorial service, but I want to go ahead and talk about the testimony on Monday first, and then I'll go back and tell you what I learned and saw and who I met and all those things at the memorial service. But let's talk about Chad and his animated behavior that he had during the trial. Now, this was pretty shocking to me. As I was watching, I was thinking, I was kind of getting a little sleepy. It was getting a little bit drab, and I was trying to stay awake. And then I saw Chad with his, whoo, he was smiling, he was whispering, he was animated, really way more than he ever has been that I've seen so far. And why was he animated? Well, there were two different witnesses that were friends or that were relatives of Tammy's who told a story of what they said that Chad told them of what happened to Tammy the day she died.
If at all, did you have contact with Tammy during your childhood?
I didn't know Tammy super well. Like we saw her at family events, but I was younger, so I was like playing with her kids.
Chad's perked up forehead and smiling face has me curious. Is he smiling at her because he's trying to intimidate her, or he's trying to influence her? Or could it be that he thinks, we got you on the ropes. You hardly knew Tammy. I can't wait to hear what your testimony is. I don't know. Let's keep watching.
But yeah, we would see them at family activities.
So you learned of her passing. Did you have occasion to attend her funeral?
Yes, I did.
The best you can recall, when was her funeral relative to her passing?
It was a week after her passing.
Chad really lifts his nose in the air after this because, again, I think he's thinking he's got her on the ropes. Ha ha! You say it was a week after her passing, and it was only 2 or 3 days after her passing. So, see, your testimony's not going to be worth anything, and I gotcha. That's my opinion anyway. Sorry, the quality's not that good, but you still can see what his facials are if you look close. But this is the best quality that the court's given us. So let's keep on watching.
Ish.
You think? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you also attend a viewing?
Yes, I did.
Did you have the opportunity while at that viewing to go through the viewing line?
Yes, I did.
How many times do you recall going through it that night?
I went through twice.
Who did you go through?
It appears to me that Chad is shocked to find out that she went through the line twice at the viewing.
Yeah, he said that Tammy had been sick that day.
Now, when she describes what Chad had said about how Tammy died, Chad does go back to his stoic, frozen look. It's hard to even tell if the cameras are frozen. Every once in a while, you see someone move in the background. Otherwise, you'd think that the camera's frozen because he doesn't move. Oh, but wait, the animation is coming.
He said that she had been vomiting and coughing. And then around 10 p.m., she had vomited again and then came to his office and said that she was feeling a little bit better.
For some reason, the thought of Tammy feeling a little bit better seems to amuse him. And I don't know if that's his way of thinking, oh yeah, well, she can just wait. But considering what allegedly happens next to Tammy by Chad, it's creepy.
And he said that she was going to bed and that he stayed in his office working.
Chad's next movements are a tell. He shakes his head no. You'll have to watch this closely, but he shakes his head no. He wasn't in his office working, allegedly. He was preparing for something. And for some reason, he's amused.
And then around 1 a.m., he went upstairs.
Did you see him shake his head and lift his eyebrows in amusement? What does it represent? Let's watch it again.
And then around 1 a.m., he went upstairs and found Tammy on the floor.
No matter what is happening in your trial, if you really truly cared for your wife, how could you be smiling while someone is testifying about the death of your wife?
And he said that she had rolled out of the bed and was on the floor, and that he found her cold and already passed.
This, of course, is story number 1. When she goes back through the line 2 hours later with a different parent, she's going to hear story number 2.
So that was a lot of information. Just for clarity, I'm going to ask some follow-up. So when you said he described this, was he talking about the night that she passed?
Yes.
As they're talking about the night his wife passed away, another huge smile.
Okay. I think you said that she came to him at 10 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes.
What time do you remember, if at all, that he said that Tammy went to bed that night?
He said Tammy went to bed around 10.
And what time was it that you said he finally went to bed himself?
Around 1 a.m.
And when was it that he said that he found Tammy on the floor, passed away?
Around 1 a.m.
So is there any question in your mind that that's precisely what he said?
No.
During that interaction with him, did you observe anything about his tone or demeanor?
Yes.
What did you notice?
I know
I'm going to skip forward just a little bit.
because it was inconsistent with what I had heard earlier that evening.
Did you say anything at that time?
No.
Did you ask Chad any questions about the explanations at that time?
No.
Why not?
I was confused, and I also didn't feel comfortable. The conversation was being had between Chad and my parents.
Now, Chad's been helping in his own defense all along the way, but for some reason, this particular testimony seems to amuse him.
So without saying anything that she may have said in response, did you later explain this difference to your mother?
Yes.
The bottom line is, as this witness testified about the 2 different versions of the story of how Tammy died that he told at the viewing seemed to amuse him. Now, rather than rewatching all the testimony, I'll just summarize the conflicting statements from the 2 witnesses.
They said that Chad told them of what happened to Tammy the day she died, and they were conflicting with the other stories that, first of all, Chad said to police, that Chad has said to other people, and so great witnesses for the prosecutors, right? Well, the problem was that in their story of explaining how Chad said that Tammy went to bed at midnight and she was dead when he came up, she went to bed before he did, and that she was already dead when he came up at midnight. That messes with the whole entire timeline for Chad of what he had told police and the evidence that they found from how long Tammy had been dead and everything. But the part that gets a little bit of a discrepancy is that at least one of the witnesses described Chad as saying that Tammy went upstairs to go to bed and he was downstairs in his office and then eventually went up. And he started laughing and it was like, ha ha. And I think he felt like, ha, we got him now because obviously she's lying because this is a 1-story house. There's no possibility to go upstairs because it's a 1-story house, and he's just thinking, oh, we got this one. I think it's interesting because 2 things. Number 1, if you look at the house, there's actually an add-on that's kind of pitched, and there's a 2nd story. So for him to say it's a 1-story house, well, that's not quite true. You could suggest that she was in that upstairs bedroom, which would have been farther away from his office, so he wouldn't have heard her coughing or crying out or needing help. And I think that's part of why he tried to go with that story for a minute. I don't know. That's the possibility. Or it could be that the witness just, it's been 4 years, like misremembered whether she went down the hall or up the stairs. But the points that she did remember were the key elements of how the story that she told, that Chad told to her mother that she overheard, was different than the story that he told her father 2 hours later at the same viewing. So I think you could still argue that that witness had the pieces that were important correct, whether she went upstairs or downstairs. The second thing is, one thing that I've learned from watching the behavior panel, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're a YouTube channel that talk about body language and all of those things. And one thing that they talk about over and over again, and I find it really interesting here, is people who tell the truth sometimes get things mixed up. And so the fact that she hadn't been following this case to see that the house was only a, if you were really following the story and you were just trying to come in there and lie and really get Chad, you'd have that piece correct, right? You would say, oh, she went up to something. So I think it shows that, in fact, they're telling the truth. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what the jurors think about that. It's an interesting piece, that's for sure. Now I want to talk about the memorial service that was in Idaho Falls on Saturday. And I went to it. As I got there, I was amazed to see other people, friends and associates that I met during Lori's trial, and we're still friends now, and we were able to reconnect and see how things were going. We've all followed this case from the beginning with a fine-tooth comb. So it was really interesting to talk to them and see what their perspective is now and if things have changed and that sort of thing. We got some bracelets, which it's justice for Tylee, JJ, and Charles, and one says justice for Tylee, JJ, Tammy, and Charles, and Joseph, which those of you who follow the trial know that Joseph was Lori's fourth husband, who now there's speculation that he was murdered. But let's stick with Chad for now. During the service, it was just a beautiful service. And what was really interesting to me was how Larry and Kay wanted it so much to not be a crying, sad occasion.
Yes. In the front, right? Oh, look, I got some here. You got it.
It says regardless. Yeah.
We're here for one reason, two reasons, three reasons, four reasons.
Or
That's it. That's all there is.
celebrate and remember.
I'd rather not be here. I'd rather not be here doing this. I'd rather be home. But, you know, you get directions in life and you can't quit. You never quit. You never quit until way after they close that casket. Don't mess around and quit before they close.
Good advice.
You're welcome, and I'm glad you're here. Hi, how you doing?
They said we've cried enough tears and we want to have this be uplifting and memorialize these two young lives that were taken way too soon. There were a lot of interesting things when you follow who was on the program, who participated in the program, who came to the service, and more importantly, in my opinion, who didn't come and who didn't participate. They gave these cute little hearts and has a quote inside, which I'll open in a minute. While I was at the service, I was able to meet Larry and Kay. Again, I've seen them a couple of times now because of Lori's trial. I met Kay's daughter, Krisha, which I'm so excited that I got to meet her. I also got to meet Lori's brother, Adam Cox, and Lori's uncle, Uncle Rex. And it just broke my heart to see them and to really think about what they're going through, to go to this service and know that their relative, who has already been found guilty, did what she did. And her husband is now being charged. Oh, man. when I think about those that were participating, that weren't able to go to Idaho Falls, but they still participated, like Brendan Boudreau wrote a beautiful poem. JJ's biological father called in and talked about JJ. A couple of people who I saw in attendance for the funeral was one in particular that was interesting to me was Chad Daybell's brother Matt, his wife and daughter were there at the service. They were sitting right in front of me, and oh, how horrible it must be for them to go through all these things that their brother is accused of doing. But I commend them because with all the evidence that's out there, they're not just burying their head in the sand and acting like, no, not my brother, not my family. It's just the police framing him or whatever. Lori had a cousin, Megan, that was there as well. I got to meet her. It was really nice to meet everyone. I really loved that Chad's brother and his wife and daughter came. But you know who else wasn't there? None of Chad's children. And I think it's interesting because, I talk about this often, but it's a psychological thing. It's hard to admit that your father might be involved in something like this. It's so similar to the way that Barry Morphew's children are handling their situation. They believe their father was wrongfully accused. His trial didn't happen. There wasn't enough evidence. But now that the autopsy has come back about their mother and the things that were tying Barry Morphew to her, there was speculation that he murdered her with a gun to tranquilize animals. There was evidence at the scene, and now today the autopsy came back that she did die with tranquilizer, am I saying that right? Tranquilize medicine in her system. So I'm wondering if there might be some charges coming now for Barry. But regardless, it's interesting that those children went with their dad no matter what. And you know what the Daybell children did? The same as the Morphews? That is, they cut off ties from their mother's family and even had a grandparent who just desperately wanted to see them. They cut off ties, wouldn't talk to him, didn't talk to him. They've passed away and they didn't go to the funerals. This is a pattern. My heart goes out to them because they want to believe that their dad is innocent with all their hearts. That's my guess. Or is it that they know something and they're protecting? I don't know. I don't know the answer. It seems clear as bell to the rest of us, but it is a curious thing. But when it comes to Chad or Barry Morphew, they both have a lot of evidence that comes out, and they both appeared to hide evidence that would incriminate them. I was thinking about something just as simple as Tammy's Fitbit that was photographed on the side table when she passed away. But then when they went back, it was nowhere to be found. Why would Chad hide that away? Why would he get rid of it unless there's something on there that he didn't want found? If I was innocent, I would be saying, she has a Fitbit, check this out. That's just one little thing. That's one little thing. And of course, Barry Morphew. He was seen dumping stuff off in dumpsters and so much, Barry Morphew. That's another story. Now, there's one thing from a previous video that's a bit of a misunderstanding that I was talking about, and I guess I didn't say it clear enough, so I want to explain it now. And that is, I was talking about how if someone is incompetent, they don't think to hide evidence. But Chad and Barry appeared to be hiding evidence. So what I'm suggesting, especially, I got to quit talking about Barry, for Chad, why would he hide evidence if he was innocent? The fact that he hid evidence shows that he was aware of his criminal activity and he was trying to hide it. I find Chad so interesting. When I watch him in the court, I just think he's always got his chin up and he just seems to be so arrogant. And I wonder if in his mind, he thinks he's winning this trial. I don't know, maybe he is. What do you think? Do you think, because I mean, we know that what the jurors are seeing and hearing is not everything that we are hearing and seeing. So many of us have opinions already, but is there a chance that the jurors might be seeing him as an innocent in all this? What do you think? Do you think, as of right now, I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you think that the prosecutors are winning the case, or do you think the defense is winning as of today? Vote for me below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, remember, that's as of today. Once the defense puts on their witnesses and they show their side, it could completely change our opinions. But as of today, what do you think? And then I have one more question. What do you think John Pryor is going to use for his defense strategy when it's his turn to present his case? Some interesting things. I am just hoping that the main thing is that justice can be served for everyone involved in this case. I'll keep you up to date on everything that's happening, and I'll see you again soon. See ya. Oh, wait, stop. Statistics show that 80% of you have not yet subscribed. Do it.